The year is 394 BC. The plains of Coronea, central Greece. You are a Theban soldier, the best infantry in all of Greece. You have just broken through the Spartan left flank. Men are dead behind you. You are winning. Then you see him coming. He's not riding a horse. He's not commanding from a hill. He's on foot in the front rank, shield up, limping, actually limping, straight toward you at the head of the Spartan right wing. You've heard of this man. You know what he's done. And right now, with blood on the ground and the battle still roaring around you, the king of Sparta is personally leading a charge directly into the best soldiers in Greece. He doesn't slow down. How does a man Sparta's own laws condemned to die as an infant end up here? The most feared commander in the ancient world? This is the story of Agesilaus II, the king nobody wanted, the general nobody could beat. To understand just how insane this story is, you need to understand what Sparta did to children like Agesilaus. Sparta didn't raise children, it filtered them. When a baby was born, Spartan elders examined it weak, sickly, deformed. If they decided you weren't fit, they left you on a hillside to die. This wasn't cruelty for cruelty's sake. In their minds, it was engineering. They were building a war machine, and every single component had to be perfect. Agesilaus was born around 444 BC with one leg shorter than the other. He walked with a pronounced limp his entire life. By Spartan law, by the very culture that would one day make him king, he should have been left on that hillside. We don't know exactly why he survived. Perhaps his father, Agesilaus II, a reigning Spartan king, intervened. Perhaps the limp wasn't obvious enough at birth. What we do know is that the boy who limped into the world would grow up to humiliate every able-bodied king, general, and emperor who dared stand against him. But first, he had to survive. What came next? At age 7, every Spartan boy, prince or peasant, was taken from his family and thrown into the agoge. The agoge wasn't school. It was something closer to a decade-long military gauntlet. Boys slept on reeds, they cut themselves. They were deliberately underfed to encourage theft, and beaten if they got caught. They fought each other constantly. They trained in the blazing summer heat and the freezing Spartan winter with nothing but a thin cloak. For a healthy boy, it was brutal. For a boy with one leg shorter than the other, it was something else entirely. Agesilaus couldn't run like the others. He couldn't move through formations with the same ease. In a system designed to expose weakness, he was a walking target. And yet something remarkable happened. Rather than crumbling, Agesilaus became tougher than almost anyone around him. He had to work twice as hard just to keep up, so he did. He developed a physical and mental resilience that boys who had it easy simply never built. His fellow students noticed. His instructors noticed. And he started collecting something that would matter far more than a straight leg in the years ahead: loyalty. People genuinely liked him. He was known for his warmth, his humour, his relentless refusal to be beaten. The limp that was supposed to end his story before it began had forged something Sparta's enemies would come to fear. But here's where the story gets really strange. Because despite surviving the agoge, despite becoming a respected soldier, Agesilaus was never meant to be king. Sparta had two ruling royal houses simultaneously, a completely unique system in the ancient world. Agesilaus was the younger half-brother of the reigning king Agis II. He wasn't in line for anything. He was a decorated soldier, a respected man, but a spare, not an heir. Then Agis II died in 400 BC, and an ancient oracle suddenly became very relevant. The oracle had warned Sparta to beware of a lame kingship. Most people assumed this meant don't put a physically lame man on the throne. There were voices in Sparta who said exactly that, pointing directly at Agesilaus and his limp. But Agesilaus had a powerful ally, Lysander, the most influential Spartan admiral and power broker of the era, argued the oracle meant something else entirely. A kingship that was morally lame, spiritually lame. He pushed hard for Agesilaus. And so, at roughly 44 years old, the limping soldier who was supposed to die on a hillside as an infant was crowned king of Sparta. He would rule for 41 years, and he would never lose a battle. But before we get to the battle that defined everything, there's something you need to know about what he did first, because it's almost too extraordinary to believe. 2 years into his reign, Agesilaus did something no Greek leader had successfully done before. He invaded the Persian Empire. Not a raid, not a border skirmish, a full offensive into Persian-controlled Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, with the goal of breaking Persian power in the region permanently. He landed in 396 BC and immediately began playing mind games. The Persian commander Tissaphernes tried to buy time with a truce while he assembled his army. Agesilaus agreed, then immediately invaded Phrygia in the exact opposite direction from where Tissaphernes had massed his forces. By the time the Persians realized what was happening, he had swept through the countryside virtually unopposed. Tissaphernes scrambled south to protect the province of Caria. Agesilaus waited. Let him march. Then pivoted and drove straight into Lydia, Tissaphernes' own home territory, the opposite direction again. This is what made Agesilaus genuinely terrifying. He wasn't just brave, he thought faster than everyone around him. The Persians finally caught up with him outside Sardis, the wealthiest city in Asia Minor and the seat of Persian power in the entire region. Their cavalry attacked his supply lines, trying to bleed him slowly. Standard doctrine. It had worked against Greek armies before. Agesilaus turned it into a trap. He sent his own cavalry forward as bait, let the Persians chase them, then drove them straight into a wall of waiting Spartan infantry. The Persian horsemen never saw it coming. They broke instantly. With the path clear, Agesilaus plundered Sardis's legendary treasury. His men returned to camp loaded with gold and silver. Tissaphernes was executed by the Persian king for the failure, and Agesilaus kept marching deeper into Persian territory, winning every engagement, with some accounts suggesting he had his eyes on Persepolis itself. So the Persians did the only thing left. They used their gold to bribe Athens, Thebes, Corinth, and Argos into declaring war on Sparta back home. The greatest empire on earth couldn't beat him in the field, so they paid someone else to drag him home. That is how dangerous he had become. Agesilaus turned his army around and marched back across the Hellespont and through Greece itself. He arrived to find a coalition of every major city-state, freshly funded by Persian gold, united for one purpose: to finally put Sparta down for good. The plains of Coronea, two armies face each other. On one side, Agesilaus and his Spartans plus allied troops. They had just marched for months. They were tired. On the other side, the coalition, Athenians, Thebans, Corinthians, Argives, a combined force that outnumbered the Spartans on key parts of the field. They had home advantage, they were fresh, and they were funded by the richest empire on earth. The battle began, and the Spartan line started winning everywhere except one place. The Thebans, the most elite infantry in the coalition, crashed through the allied troops on Agesilaus' left flank and broke through entirely. A lesser commander would have called it there, accepted a partial defeat. Lived to fight another day, preserved his men. Agesilaus turned his victorious right wing and personally led them directly into the Theban regiment. Not around them, not a tactical envelopment, straight in, head on, the old way, the brutal way. His officers reportedly pleaded with him. The Thebans were the best foot soldiers in Greece. This was going to be a slaughter. He went anyway, limping forward into the most dangerous place on the battlefield at somewhere around 50 years old. What followed was described by the historian Xenophon, who was actually present, as the most intense close-quarters combat he had ever witnessed. Two walls of men hacking at each other with no elegance, no tactics, pure violence. The Thebans were elite, but Agesilaus was Spartan, and he had been fighting since he was 7 years old. The Theban regiment was broken. The coalition army dissolved. Sparta's dominance over Greece was reasserted against overwhelming odds, on a day when by every calculation they should have lost. It was the most hard-fought victory of Agesilaus' career, and it wasn't even his last act. Here is where the story goes from remarkable to genuinely insane. By the 360 BC, Sparta's power had finally been broken not by Agesilaus, but by his successors in a catastrophic defeat at Leuctra in 371 BC. The Spartan state was in crisis. They desperately needed money to fund new armies and rebuild. Agesilaus now in his 80s, came up with a solution. He would go to war as a mercenary general for Egypt. Egypt was in the middle of a civil war, a native Egyptian pharaoh fighting to expel Persian control, and they needed experienced commanders. Agesilaus, the king of Sparta, limped onto a ship at approximately 84 years old and sailed to Egypt to fight someone else's war. He didn't do it for glory. He did it for Sparta. Every drachma he earned went back home to fund Sparta's recovery. He won. Of course he won. Even in his 80s, commanding foreign troops in a foreign land, in a foreign conflict, he managed the campaign successfully, secured the money, and boarded a ship to return home. He died at sea on the return journey, somewhere off the coast of Libya. 84 years old. Mid-campaign, still fighting. His men couldn't transport his body back to Sparta in the heat, so they preserved it in honey and carried him home. The crippled boy who should have died on a hillside came home one last time, embalmed in honey, to be buried as a king. In his entire military career, from the shores of Persia to the plains of central Greece to the deserts of Egypt, Agesilaus II never lost a battle. Not once. The Spartan system almost threw him away before he drew his first breath. Tried to end him by buying off half of Greece. A coalition of city-states united specifically to destroy him. Every single one of them failed, because the thing that makes an unstoppable commander isn't a perfect body, it's a mind that has already decided it will not stop. Agesilaus made that decision at age 7, and he never changed it. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. We've got plenty more where this came from.